Zeland news at 10. I'm Mickey Louie. Good evening. I'm Catriona McLeod with a 15-minute roundup of news from throughout the country and around the world. The headlines. A swarm of earthquakes, the strongest measuring 6 on the Richter scale, has left Christchurch residents reeling just before Christmas. The quakes have caused fresh liquefaction, more rock falls, further damaged some buildings and cut power. And police are appealing for witnesses who may have seen the man who attacked a 5-year-old girl at a Turangi campground. The head of the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority believes some areas are in a worse condition after today's shakes than they were after the 6.3 earthquake in June. The city has been hit by a swarm of quakes this afternoon and evening, the worst at 18 minutes past 3, measuring 6 on the Richter scale. They've been centred in Pegasus Bay, between 10 and 20 kilometres east of Christchurch, as depths as shallow as 6 kilometres. The authority's chief executive, Roger Sutton, says liquefaction has occurred in many areas again, including Parklands, Dallington, Avonside and Bexley.
I just sort of believe it's pretty similar to sort of the impact of June is similar, but there'll be some areas which are probably, worse than June and then actually I think Parklands, some areas of Parklands to me just appeared to be, worse than September, but we're still really bringing all that information in at the moment.
Crews on helicopter flyovers have also spotted rock falls in the suburbs of Redcliffe, Scarborough, Whitewash Head, Peacock's Gallop and Richmond Hill. However, Roger Sutton says there seems to be no damage to houses and no landslides have been spotted. Civil Defence says people should stay clear of the Port Hills where possible while engineers evaluate the area. Fewer than 20 people were hospitalised as a result of today's quakes, and those patients do not have serious injuries. The Canterbury District Health Board says many of them have conditions relating to stress and panic. The ambulance service says its workload has returned to normal after about 150 emergency calls for help just after the quakes began to hit. The line's company Orion says 1,500 households are still without power in Christchurch, most of them in the hard-hit suburb of New Brighton. It says there are other isolated pockets where the power is also out. Orion's chief executive, Rob Jameson, says workers are making rapid progress reconnecting customers. He said at the peak following the magnitude 6 quake, 26,000 households were without power. He says it's likely many households without power now will not be reconnected tonight. He says the network in New Brighton remains fragile and residents should prepare for intermittent power supply over the next few days. However, Christchurch residents are now being advised there is no need for them to boil water. Earlier notices from Civil Defence advised residents that water could be contaminated by sewage. But the Earthquake Recovery Minister, Jerry Brownlee, says the city's infrastructure has been largely unaffected by today's quakes. He says a couple of sewerage pumping stations have lost power, but that should be restored shortly. The police in Christchurch say they're focusing on reassurance and public safety as the city reels from today's quakes. The acting district commander, Inspector John Price, says all available officers have been mobilised across the city, especially out in the eastern suburbs. He says police will be out in force again tomorrow, along with the Earthquake Recovery Authority, the fire service and other agencies, to knock on doors in those suburbs and check on people's safety and welfare. Mr. Price says people should also check on their neighbours and make sure people nearby are safe and well. He says today's aftershocks will put added stress on people at what is already a stressful time of year, and people should avoid adding too much alcohol to the mix. He says motorists should also take care on the roads, particularly in eastern Christchurch, where the quakes have caused fresh damage to roads. The earthquakes have forced a central police station to stop operation from more than half of its 13-storey building due to damage to its upper floors. The Christchurch police spokesperson says staff are now working out of only the first 4 levels of the building after safety concerns, including tiles falling from ceilings. The spokesperson says the building is still operational, with some staff being allowed to go to certain floors above level 4 to retrieve paperwork such as police files. Most are working out of the police communications centre until the building can be inspected. A Radio New Zealand journalist has described dramatic scenes, including flooding from liquefaction and giant clouds of dust from rocks shearing off cliffs. Katie Gossett, who lives in Sumner, was driving during the second large quake near Redcliffe, so she could see a huge cloud of red dust just a few hundred metres away. She says after the second aftershock hit, she saw discolored water from liquefaction creeping into the sea.
It was really quite substantial. It was as if, I'd run over oil on the road, holding onto the steering wheel to try and control the vehicle, swaying from side to side and just having to, gently blow the brake and come to a gradual stop.
Katie Gossett says it's very hard to make a comparison to previous earthquakes because areas are affected differently. Rita Langley from Ferrymead could see liquefaction from her office window.
Been watching some interesting liquefaction volcanoes come out of the mud. Yeah, and there's the usual stench of God knows what coming out of the ground. Yeah, feels a bit like right around there. I don't know, everything seems fairly chilled. You can kind of hear the traffic from here though, and you can hear everyone, it all sort of build up, like the city sounds like a beehive that's just been kicked. Everybody's zooming around, I guess, leaving town earlier than they planned to.
Rita Langley in Ferrymead. The Deputy Mayor of Christchurch, Nairi Button, says it's particularly upsetting for residents the latest quakes hit so close to Christmas.
The timing is a real shame, and it's very hard on the people of Christchurch, and my heart goes out to them, just preparing for Christmas and shopping and the frenetic, activity that happens coming up to Christmas, and I guess people are really distracted from the earthquake and the recovery and all the things that are going on and thinking about Christmas. And to have it, all raised again and Christmas sort of put onto the back burner, it's a real shame for the people.
Nairi Button says she suspects more people will leave Christchurch for good because of today's quakes. One of those is a Scarborough Hills resident. Barbara Scanlon says she thought all the earthquakes were almost over.